Commander Jake Miller stood at the big window of the space station. He was drinking his morning coffee when the sky changed. Dark shapes appeared from nowhere, floating in the black space around Earth. The shapes were huge, much bigger than any human ship. Jake dropped his coffee cup. It floated away in the zero gravity. He pressed his face against the cold glass. More ships kept appearing. They looked strange, like they had grown instead of being built. Their surfaces curved and flowed like living things. "Commander!" a voice called from behind him. It was Sergeant Kim Davis. She was running toward him, her face white with fear. "Sir, you need to see this. The radar is going crazy." Jake followed Kim to the control room. The screens showed hundreds of red dots. Each dot was a ship. The biggest ones were the size of small cities. Around Earth, the dots formed a perfect circle. They had surrounded the planet. "How many?" Jake asked. Lieutenant Tony Clark looked up from his station. His hands shook as he counted. "Over 3,000 ships, sir, maybe more. They're still coming." Jake felt his stomach drop. Earth's entire space fleet had maybe 50 ships. These aliens had brought an army. The communication screen suddenly lit up. A face appeared that made everyone in the room step back. The creature was tall and thin. Its skin looked like crystal, and its eyes glowed with a soft blue light. When it spoke, its voice was calm and cold. "People of Earth," the alien said. "I am High Arbiter Zethara of the Cathara. We have returned to claim our home." Jake grabbed the microphone. "This is Commander Jake Miller of the Earth Defense Force. What do you want?" Zethara's crystal face showed no emotion. "Want? We want nothing. We take what is ours. This world belonged to us long before your species learned to walk upright. 50,000 of your years ago we left this place. Now we return." "That's impossible," Jake said. "Humans have lived here for thousands of years. This is our world." "Your world?" Zethara laughed. The sound was like breaking glass. "You are children playing in our house. We built the first cities on this world when your ancestors were still animals. We planted the first seeds in this soil. Down on Earth, President Lisa Park was in an emergency meeting. The White House Situation Room was full of people shouting and arguing. Generals, scientists, and politicians all talked at once. Nobody had answers. "Quiet!" President Park slammed her hand on the table. The room went silent. "Admiral Ben Carter, what are our options?" Admiral Carter was a big man with gray hair. He had fought in 3 wars, but he had never seen anything like this. "Madam President, we're outgunned 100 to 1. Our best weapons might scratch their paint." Dr. Amy Foster, the head of Alien Studies, raised her hand. "We should try to talk to them. Maybe we can find a peaceful solution." "Talk? General?" Pete Wilson stood up. He was angry. "They just told us to get off our own planet. What's to talk about?" The alien's voice came through the speakers again. Every screen on Earth showed Zethara's crystal face. "People of Earth, you have 30 of your days to leave this world. Take your ships and find another place to live. We do not wish to harm you. But this world will be cleansed." President Park stood up. "Cleansed? What does that mean?" "It means," Zethara said, "that everything on this world will be removed. The air, the water, the plants, the animals. Everything will be made pure again, made ready for our return." "You're talking about killing billions of people," President Park said. "We are talking about cleaning our home," Zethara replied. "You are not people to us, you are an infestation, but we are merciful. We give you time to leave." The communication ended. The screens went black. In the Situation Room, nobody spoke for a long time. Finally, Admiral Carter cleared his throat. "Madam President, we need to start evacuation plans. 30 days isn't much time." "Evacuation to where?" asked Dr. Foster. "Mars can hold maybe 1 million people. The moon colonies even less. We have 7 billion people on Earth." President Park looked around the room. These were the smartest, strongest people in the government, but they all looked defeated before the fight had even started. "No," she said quietly. Then louder, "No, we don't run. General Wilson frowned. Madam President, with respect, we can't fight them. It would be suicide. Maybe, President Park said. But this is our home. Our children were born here. Our parents are buried here. If they want Earth, they can try to take it. But we won't just give it to them. Back on the space station, Jake was watching the alien ships. They had moved closer to Earth. He could see smaller ships flying back and forth between the big ones. They were getting ready for something. Commander, Sergeant Davis said softly. What do we do? Jake thought about his wife and daughter down on Earth. He thought about every human who had ever lived and died on that blue planet. He thought about all the children who would never grow up if these aliens had their way. We fight, he said. We fight like our lives depend on it. Because they do. Lieutenant Clark looked up from his station. Sir, I'm getting reports from around the world. Every government is saying the same thing. No evacuation. We stand and fight. Jake nodded. For the first time since the aliens arrived, he smiled. Then let's show these crystal-faced bullies what humans can do when they're cornered. Outside the station, the alien ships waited in their perfect formation. They had given humanity 30 days. They thought it was plenty of time for a primitive species to pack up and leave. They had no idea what humans could do in 30 days. Dr. Amy Foster worked late into the night. Her lab was full of alien tissue samples. The Cathera had sent them as a gift to help humans understand what was coming. Amy wished they hadn't. Under her microscope, the alien cells looked beautiful, but wrong. They glowed with their own light, and they moved in ways that shouldn't be possible. But what scared her most was what happened when she put them near human cells. The human cells died. Not slowly, but all at once, like they were being poisoned. Amy tried different tests. Same result every time. Human and Cathera biology couldn't exist in the same place. Amy picked up her phone and called President Park. It was 3 a.m, but the president answered right away. Amy, what did you find? It's worse than we thought, Amy said. They're not just taking our planet, they're going to change it completely. The air, the water, everything. If they succeed, nothing human will be able to live here, not even bacteria. President. Park was quiet for a moment. How long? Based on what I'm seeing? Maybe 6 months after they start. Everything alive on Earth will be dead. The next morning, the word spread. Not through official channels, but through whispers and secret messages. Humans around the world started to understand. This wasn't about sharing the planet. It was about replacing everything that lived on it. Colonel Steve Walsh got the news while he was training new soldiers. Steve was a Marine, and Marines didn't like bullies. He called together his best officers. Listen up, he said. The government won't say it officially, but we're looking at extinction. These aliens don't want to live with us, they want to replace us. Lieutenant Sam Brown raised his hand. What's the plan, sir? Steve looked around the room. These were good soldiers, but they were thinking like soldiers. That wouldn't work against an enemy this strong. Forget everything you know about fighting fair, Steve said. We're not fighting other humans now. We're fighting for the right to exist. Every dirty trick, every cheap shot, every way to hurt them that you can think of. Use it. Across the world, other people were making the same choice. Mia Johnson was a computer programmer in Chicago. She had never held a gun, but she knew computers. She started working on ways to break into alien systems. The Cathera ships used advanced technology, but they were careless with security. They thought humans were too primitive to be a threat. Mia proved them wrong. She found ways to make their communications scrambled and their navigation systems confused. In London, Tom Baker was a construction worker. He knew how to build things, which meant he knew how to break them down. Tom started teaching other workers how to turn their tools into weapons. Cranes became catapults. Bulldozers became battering rams. The Kythera watched all this activity with amusement. High Arbiter Zathara stood on the bridge of her flagship. Through the great windows, she could see Earth turning slowly below. They're moving around like ants, said Subcommander Veltar. Should we stop them? Let them play, Zathara said. It makes no difference. When the time comes, we will clean the world properly. Their little weapons cannot hurt our ships. But down on Earth, humans were doing something the Kythera had never seen before. They were not just preparing to fight. They were preparing to make the aliens pay for every inch of ground. Jake Miller got new orders from Earth Command. Instead of defending the space station, he was supposed to evacuate to Mars. Jake read the orders twice, then threw them in the trash. "Sergeant Davis," he called. "How many people want to stay and fight?" Kim Davis had already asked around. "All of them, sir. Nobody wants to run." "Good. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we're staying put. If the aliens want this station, they can come and take it." The message Jake sent was short. "Earth Defense Station New Geneva will not be abandoned. We'll hold this position as long as we can breathe." Similar messages came from every human outpost in space. The moon bases, the asteroid miners, even the tiny research stations on the edge of the solar system. Nobody was running. On Earth, ordinary people started making extraordinary preparations. In New York, subway workers began setting up traps in the tunnels. If the aliens wanted to use the underground, they would find surprises waiting. In Tokyo, engineers started rigging skyscrapers with explosives, not to destroy the buildings, but to make them fall on alien forces at just the right moment. In Moscow, factory workers began making weapons out of anything they could find. Car parts became armor. Kitchen knives became spears. Garden chemicals became bombs. The Kythera had given humans 30 days, thinking it was generous. They didn't understand that 30 days was enough time for 7 billion humans to turn their entire planet into a trap. As the deadline got closer, strange reports reached Zethara. Human activity had increased, not decreased. Instead of packing to leave, they were digging in like they planned to stay forever. "Perhaps they don't understand," suggested Veltar. "Should we send another message?" Zethara considered this. The humans were acting oddly, but they were just primitives. What could they really do? "No," she said. "When the cleansing begins, they will understand quickly enough." But in her private chambers, Zethara read the reports again. Humans were building things, moving things, changing things all over their planet. It looked almost like preparation for war. She dismissed the thought. These creatures had never faced the Kythera before. They had no idea what real power looked like. Soon they would learn. Dr. Amy Foster made one more discovery in her lab. While studying the alien samples, she found something interesting. The Kythera cells were perfect, but they were also fragile. They couldn't adapt to change the way human cells could. If she could find the right kind of change, the right kind of stress, maybe human biology could fight back after all. Amy started working on a new project. If the Kythera wanted a biological war, she would give them one. The 30th day arrived. All over Earth, humans stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky. The alien ships began to move, descending through the atmosphere like falling stars. In the White House, President Park gave one last speech to the world. "Today we face our greatest challenge, but we face it together. We are human. We adapt. We survive. We fight back." On the space station, Jake Miller watched the alien ships moving toward Earth. He turned to his crew. "This is it, people. Show them what we're made of." The war for Earth was about to begin. But the Kythera had no idea that they weren't fighting scared primitives. They were fighting the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They were fighting humans who had nothing left to lose. The first Kythera ships landed in major cities around the world. They expected humans to run screaming. Instead, they found empty streets and silent buildings. Too late, they realized it was a trap. In New York, the aliens landed in Central Park. The moment their doors opened, every building around the park exploded at the same time. Glass and steel fell like rain on the alien soldiers. But that was just the beginning. From the subway tunnels came sounds the Kythera had never heard. Human voices, screaming not in fear but in rage. Hundreds of people poured out of hidden entrances, carrying weapons made from pipes, kitchen knives, and broken glass. The Kythera soldiers were tall and graceful, with armor that could stop bullets. But they had never faced an enemy that threw itself at them with such fury. A human child ran up to an alien warrior and exploded a hand grenade. Both died, but the alien's friends stood there in shock. How could these creatures choose death over surrender? In Tokyo, the same scene played out. An old man drove a fuel truck straight into a group of Cathara soldiers. The explosion took out an entire city block. In London, a woman with a baby in her arms walked up to alien guards and triggered a bomb. Vest. The Cathara tried to understand. This wasn't warfare as they knew it. Their enemies weren't trying to win battles. They were trying to make every victory as expensive as possible. Captain Ryan Torres led a special forces team in Los Angeles. When the aliens landed at LAX airport, Ryan's team was waiting. They had hidden in the old maintenance tunnels under the runways. "Remember," Ryan told his men, "we're not trying to beat them. We're trying to hurt them so bad they'll think twice about the next city." Ryan's team had filled their backpacks with explosives. They crawled through the tunnels until they were right under the alien command ship. Then they set off every bomb at once. The explosion was so big it could be seen from space. The alien ship crashed into the terminal, taking out half the airport. Ryan and his entire team died, but they took 300 Cathara with them. High Arbiter Zathara watched the reports from her flagship. In every city, the pattern was the same. Humans weren't fighting to win. They were fighting to make sure. The Cathara paid in blood for every inch of Earth. "This makes no sense," she said to Sub-Commander Veltar. "Why do they throw their lives away so easily?" "Perhaps they are more primitive than we thought," Veltar suggested. "Maybe they don't understand that death is final." But Zathara had studied many species. She had seen fear, anger, desperation. This was something else. This was hate so pure it burned like a star. In space, Jake Miller's crew had their own surprise ready. When 3 Cathara ships came to capture the space station, they found it empty except for Jake and 5 volunteers. The volunteers had rigged the station's nuclear reactor to overload. As the alien boarding party got close, Jake smiled at them, through his helmet. "Welcome to Earth, you crystal-faced freaks." Jake triggered the reactor. The explosion destroyed all 3 alien ships and the space station. But the message was clear. Humans would rather die than surrender. Intelligence officer Kate Brooks was captured during the fighting in Washington, D.C. The Cathara brought her to their command center for questioning. They wanted to understand why humans were so willing to die. Kate was strapped to a chair that could read her thoughts. The alien interrogator, a tall creature with 6 arms, leaned over her. "Your species confuses us," it said. "You fight battles you cannot win. You sacrifice yourselves for no gain. Explain this madness. You want to know why we fight?" Kate spat blood from her broken lip. "Because this is our home. Because you're trying to kill everyone we've ever loved. Because we'd rather die fighting than live on our knees." The interrogator probed deeper into her mind. What it found there made it step back in horror. Kate's thoughts were full of images. Children playing in parks, families eating dinner together, lovers holding hands. But underneath it all was a furnace of protective rage. "You would die for creatures not even related to you," the alien said with amazement. "In a heartbeat," Kate said. "And so would they for me." But then the interrogator found something else in Kate's memories. Something that made its crystalline skin turn pale. It called for High Arbiter Zathara immediately. "Show me," Zathara commanded when she arrived. The interrogator played Kate's memories on a screen. They saw human history. The wars, the struggles, the endless cycle of conflict and survival. But they also saw something else. They saw how humans had changed over thousands of years. "Look at their development," the interrogator whispered. "They're not naturally this aggressive. Something changed them. Something made them into perfect warriors." Zathara studied the genetic information in Kate's cells. Slowly, a terrible understanding began to dawn on her. The human genetic code had been altered, modified, improved. "When?" she asked. The interrogator ran calculations. "Approximately 50,000 years ago, someone changed their ancestors, made them stronger, faster, more aggressive, more willing to fight and die for their group." Zathara felt something she hadn't experienced in centuries. Fear. She called up the Cathara historical records from their old homeworld. The dates matched perfectly. Impossible. she breathed. But the evidence was right there. 50,000 years ago, the Kithera had conducted experiments on the primitive creatures they found on their homeworld. They had tried to create the perfect warrior species, but the project had become too dangerous, and they had fled, leaving their test subjects behind. Those test subjects had been early humans. Kate saw the realization in Zathara's glowing eyes. Even strapped to the interrogation chair, she managed to smile. "Figured it out, did you?" she said. "You made us. You turned our ancestors into killers, then ran away when you got scared. But we didn't stop evolving. We got better at it." Zathara's hands shook as she accessed more files. The Kithara experiments had been designed to create soldiers who would never give up, never surrender, who would fight to protect their group even unto death. The experiments had worked too well. The modified humans had become so aggressive that they turned on their creators. The Kithera had barely escaped with their lives. 50,000 years, Kate said, her voice getting stronger. 50,000 years of war, survival, and evolution. You created us, then left us to get better at the one thing you taught us how to do. Zathara looked at the reports from Earth. Humans weren't just fighting back. They were hunting Kithera soldiers through the ruins of cities. They were turning every battle into a massacre. They were doing exactly what they had been designed to do. You wanted perfect warriors, Kate said. Congratulations, you got them. The truth spread through the Kithara fleet like a virus. They weren't fighting primitives. They weren't fighting equals. They were fighting their own creation, perfected by millennia of constant warfare. They had come home to find that their abandoned experiment had grown up. And it was very, very angry news anchor Dan Miller broadcast the truth to both worlds. His station had been destroyed, but he kept transmitting from a hidden bunker. People of Earth, he said, we now know the truth. These aliens didn't just find our world. They made us what we are. And now they're going to learn why they ran away in the first place. Across the planet, human resistance forces heard the broadcast. The knowledge that they were fighting their creators filled them with new purpose. They weren't just defending their home. They were showing their makers what their experiment had become. The Kithera had created humanity to be the ultimate warriors. Now they were about to discover just how well they had succeeded. The truth changed everything. Once humans learned they were fighting their own creators, the war shifted from defense to offense. The Kithera had made them to be warriors. Now they would see what 50,000 years of warfare had taught their creation. Pilot Grace Stone flew her fighter through the wreckage of Paris. Her plane was barely holding together, held with tape and spare parts. But it worked, and that was all that mattered. Grace had lost her squadron, her base, and most of her friends. But she had gained something else. 3 captured Kithera fighters. She had learned how to fly them by watching the aliens before killing them. "This is Ghost Leader," she said into her radio. "I have eyes on a Kithera supply convoy, beginning attack run." The alien ships were sleek and beautiful, designed for speed and grace. Grace's stolen fighter looked like junk next to them, but the Kithera pilots had one big weakness. They fought like they were dancing, not like they were trying to kill someone. Grace fought like she wanted to rip their throats out with her bare teeth. She dove into the middle of the convoy, all weapons, firing. 2 alien ships exploded before they knew she was there. The others tried to scatter, but Grace had friends waiting for them. From asteroid belts and dead space stations, more human pilots appeared. They flew captured alien ships, modified human, vessels and machines that shouldn't have been able to fly at all. But they all had one thing in common. They weren't trying to win pretty fights. They were trying to make sure no Kithera survived. "Target destroyed," Grace reported as the last alien ship exploded. Moving to hunting position. On Earth, engineer Nick Adams was having the time of his life. Before the war, he had built bridges and highways. Now he was turning entire cities into weapons. In Detroit, Nick had rigged the old auto factories to build war machines. But not the kind of war machines the Kithera expected. These were ugly, brutal devices designed for one purpose: killing aliens, in the most efficient way possible. The beauty of it, Nick explained to his team, is that they don't understand human engineering. They think everything has to be perfect and elegant. They don't get that sometimes ugly works better. Nick's latest creation was a modified garbage truck. It looked harmless, but it was filled with explosives and controlled by remote. When Cathara patrols walked past it, Nick would drive it right into them and detonate. He had built dozens of these disposable weapons. Car bombs, exploding mannequins, robot dogs with grenades for heads. Every street in Detroit had become a hunting ground. The Cathara learned to avoid Detroit. Then they learned to avoid Cleveland, then Chicago. Soon, there were whole areas of Earth marked as too dangerous on their maps. On Mars, Colony Administrator Helen Price had her own surprise for the aliens. Mars was supposed to be a safe place where humans could evacuate. The Cathara had sent a small fleet to make sure the colonists stayed put. Helen met the alien commander at the main spaceport. She was a small woman with gray hair, and she looked completely harmless. The Cathara officer, a tall creature with golden skin, looked down at her with amusement. "You will surrender your colony," it said. "Your people will remain here while we clean your homeworld." Helen nodded politely. "Of course. Would you like a tour of our facilities first? We're very proud of what we've built here." The alien agreed. It thought humans were being reasonable for once. Helen led the tour group through the colony's main complex, showing off the factories, the living quarters, and the hydroponic gardens. What the aliens didn't notice was that every human they passed was armed. The workers in the factories were soldiers. The families in the living quarters were resistance fighters. Even the children carried weapons. When Helen gave the signal, the entire colony attacked at once. The Cathara were surrounded by thousands of humans who had been pretending to be harmless civilians. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, Helen stood in the wreckage of her colony's main square surrounded by alien bodies. Half her people were dead, but they had captured an entire Cathara fleet. "This is Mars Colony," she broadcast to Earth. "The extraction ships are ours now. We're coming home." The pattern repeated across the solar system. On Europa, ice miners used their drilling equipment to bore holes in alien ships. On Titan, research scientists turned their laboratories into bomb factories. On the asteroid belt, miners used their ships to ram Cathara vessels. Everywhere the aliens went, they found humans who were ready to die to hurt them. High Arbiter Zathara stood in her command center, staring at the tactical displays. Red marks showed where her forces had been destroyed. There were so many red marks that the screen looked like it was bleeding. "How many ships have we lost?" she asked Sub-Commander Veltar. "Over 40% of the fleet," Veltar replied. His voice shook. "And the humans are getting better at fighting us. They're adapting to our tactics faster than we can change them." Zathara looked at the reports from her ground commanders. Every single landing had turned into a massacre, not of humans, but of Cathara. The creatures they had created 50,000 years ago had learned new tricks. "They're not fighting like soldiers," reported Ground Commander Sektal from the ruins of Berlin. "They're fighting like predators. They set traps, they hunt in packs, they never attack directly unless they're sure they can win." Another report came from Commander Wejtar in Moscow. "They use their wounded as bait. A human will pretend to be hurt, and when we come to capture it, 20 more humans attack from hiding. They have no honor." Zathara almost laughed. Honor? They had created a species designed to kill efficiently, then abandoned them to evolve. On a world where only the most vicious survived. What did they expect? But the worst reports came from space. Captain Greystone's fighter squadron had become a legend among both humans and Cathara. They didn't fight battles. They committed murders. They would disappear into asteroid fields, then jump out to destroy entire convoys before vanishing again. The Cathara had superior technology, superior numbers, and superior training. But they were losing because they were fighting an enemy that didn't care about rules, honor, or fair play. They were fighting humans. "We need to fall back," Veltar suggested. "Regroup and develop new strategies." "Fall back to where?" Zathara demanded. "They're everywhere. They're in our ships, our bases, our supply lines. They're hunting us." On Earth, the human resistance had evolved from desperate survivors into an efficient killing machine. Colonel Steve Walsh coordinated attacks from a bunker that moved every few hours. His radio constantly buzzed with reports from around the world. Chicago reports enemy convoy destroyed. New York reports spaceport captured. London reports alien command center neutralized. Each victory cost human lives, but each victory made the next one easier. Humans were learning Cathara tactics, stealing their weapons, and turning their own technology against them. The aliens are scared, reported one of Steve's scouts. They're not patrolling alone anymore. They travel in big groups and they shoot at anything that moves. Steve smiled grimly. Fear was a weapon, and humans had become experts at using it. Every Cathara soldier now looked over their shoulder, wondering if a human sniper was watching them. Every alien pilot checked their ship twice, wondering if humans had planted a bomb. The hunters had become the hunted. Dr. Amy Foster worked in a new laboratory, built in the basement of a destroyed hospital. She had perfected her biological weapon, a virus that attacked Cathara technology. Their ships, their weapons, even their armor relied on organic components. Amy's virus made those components break down. "It's ready," she told the resistance leaders. One dose in their air supply, and their technology starts failing within hours. The virus spread through captured alien equipment, then to Cathara ships, when they docked for repairs. Soon, alien vessels all over the solar system began experiencing mysterious malfunctions. The Cathara were dying, not from human weapons, but from their own technology turning against them. Their perfect, elegant machines were rotting from the inside out. Zathara received the final report she never wanted to read. Request immediate evacuation. Human resistance has made the planet untenable. Recommend full withdrawal from this system. The Cathara had come to reclaim their ancient homeworld. Instead, they had found that their creations had grown up to become the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. The experiment was over. The students had become the masters. High Arbiter Zathara made her final decision in desperation. If she couldn't have Earth, no one could. The Cathara fleet gathered around a massive weapon ship designed to crack planets like eggs. "We will destroy this world completely," she announced to her remaining commanders. "It is the only way to stop these creatures from spreading." But the humans had been watching. Intelligence networks that had grown from whispered messages to galaxy-spanning operations reported the alien movements. What had started as a desperate defense was now a hunting pack in full pursuit. Chief Engineer Paul Garcia stood in the engine room of the captured Cathara flagship, Death's Grace. The ship had been taken 3 weeks ago when a human suicide squad had rammed it with a garbage freighter. Paul's job was to make the alien technology work for human crews. "This is crazy," said his assistant Lisa Wong. "We don't understand half of this stuff." Paul grinned and patted the alien control panel. "Don't need to understand it. Just need to make it go boom when we want it to." The Death's Grace was part of a new human fleet. Every ship was a captured alien vessel, flown by crews who had learned warfare from 50,000 years of killing each other. They didn't fight like the Cathara expected. They fought like pirates. Captain Maria Santos commanded the Death's Grace now. She had been a merchant captain before the war, running cargo between Earth and Mars. Now she was hunting the most advanced species in the galaxy. "All ships, this is Santos," she broadcast to the human fleet. "The aliens are gathering around. They're planet killer. Time to show them what we learned from them." The Cathara weapon ship was the size of a city, its escorts numbered in the hundreds. By any reasonable calculation, the human fleet was outnumbered and outgunned. But humans had stopped being reasonable the day the aliens gave them 30 days to evacuate their home. Admiral Ben Carter, now commanding from a captured alien battleship, gave the attack order. "All ships engage at will. Make them pay for every shot." The human fleet attacked like a pack of wolves. They didn't form neat battle lines or try to protect their flanks. They swarmed the enemy, each ship going after targets of opportunity. Grace Stone, now flying a modified alien fighter, led her squadron straight into the escort fleet. Her pilots had learned to fly like maniacs, pulling maneuvers that would have killed them in human ships. But alien technology was tougher, and human pilots were willing to push it past its breaking point. "This is Ghost Leader," Grace reported, as she tore through an enemy formation. "Breaking off to attack the planet killer. All wings follow me." The Kithara weapon ship had defenses that could stop 1,000 conventional attacks. But Grace's pilots weren't making conventional attacks. They were making suicide runs, each fighter packed with enough explosives to level a city block. One by one, human pilots flew straight into the alien ship's hull. Each explosion weakened the massive vessel's structure. After the 7th suicide attack, secondary explosions began rippling through the ship's interior. Zethara watched in horror from her command ship as the planet killer began to break apart. The humans weren't just stopping her weapon, they were destroying it with their own bodies. "How can they do this?" she whispered. "How can they throw their lives away so easily?" Sub-Commander Veltar had found the answer in the human databases they had captured. "It's in their genetics," he said. "The modifications we made 50,000 years ago. We programmed them to value the group over the individual, to die for their species without hesitation." Zethara realized the terrible irony. They had created humans to be expendable soldiers. Now those same humans were expending themselves to destroy their creators. Dr. Amy Foster's virus was spreading faster than anyone had expected. Kithara technology throughout the fleet was breaking down. Ships lost power. Weapons malfunctioned. Life support systems failed. The aliens had built their entire civilization around biotechnology that was supposed to be indestructible. They had never imagined that someone could create a disease that attacked machines. Amy watched from her laboratory as alien ships all over the system went dark. Her virus was working better than she had hoped. The Kithara weren't just losing the war, they were losing the ability to fight at all. "Message from the front lines," her assistant called out. "The human fleet is moving in for the final attack." Amy smiled grimly. The students were about to teach their teachers a final lesson. The battle for the Kithara command ship was unlike anything in recorded history. Human boarding parties led by soldiers who had learned urban warfare in the ruins of their cities fought through corridors designed for graceful, civilized beings. The aliens were taller, stronger, and better armored, but humans fought like demons, using every dirty trick they had learned in 50,000 years of war. Sergeant Kim Davis led her team through the ship's crystal corridors. The walls were beautiful, carved with flowing patterns that looked like art. Kim blew holes in them with explosives. "Breach and clear," she called to her squad. "Remember, they're fast, but they're not mean. We're mean." The final confrontation came when Kim's team reached the command center. There, behind shields of pure energy, stood High Arbiter Zethara herself. "You cannot win," Zethara said. Her voice was calm, but her glowing eyes showed fear. "We are your creators. We made you what you are." Kim pulled out a grenade and smiled. "Yeah, you did. Thanks for that." She tossed the grenade at the energy shields. The explosion didn't break them, but it cracked them. More human soldiers poured into the room, firing everything they had. Zethara's shields failed. She stood alone in her command center, surrounded by the creatures she had helped create 50,000 years ago. "Please," she said, "we can share the galaxy. There's room for both our species." Kim looked around at her soldiers. Half of them were wounded. All of them had lost friends and family to the Kithara invasion. They had fought through hell to get to this moment. "You had your chance to share," Kim said. "You chose to try to wipe us out instead." The last shots of the war were fired in that crystal command center. 10 years later, Admiral Jake Miller stood on the observation deck of his flagship. It was built from captured Kithara technology, but modified with human engineering. It was ugly, efficient, and deadly. Earth had been rebuilt. The cities were different now, designed by people who had learned that beauty meant nothing if you couldn't defend it. Every building could become a fortress. Every street had hidden weapons. Every civilian knew how to fight. President Lisa Park, re-elected for the 3rd time, addressed the United Nations in the new capital of Geneva. The old Geneva was a crater, but the new one was built to last. "We have received another request for diplomatic contact," she announced. "The Velkari Empire wishes to establish peaceful relations with humanity." The assembly was quiet. Everyone knew what that meant. Another alien species had heard about what happened to the Kithara. They were being very polite. "What is our response?" asked the Chinese representative. President Park looked out at the assembled diplomats. These were the representatives of a species that had stared extinction in the face and laughed. "We tell them what we tell everyone," she said. "Come in peace, or don't come at all. We've proven we can fight. Now let's prove we can be just as good at making friends." But everyone in the room knew the real message being sent across the galaxy. Humanity was no longer the frightened species that begged for 30 days to evacuate their home. They were the species that had destroyed their own creators. Dr. Amy Foster, now head of the new Galactic Health Organization, received reports from across known space. Alien civilizations were asking for human help with diseases, famines, and natural disasters. They wanted humanity as an ally, not an enemy. "Isn't it funny?" she said to her assistant. "They created us to be warriors, and we ended up becoming the galaxy's protectors." Grace Stone, now commanding the Earth Defense Fleet, patrolled the edge of human space. Her ships were a mix of captured alien technology and brutal human engineering. They weren't pretty, but they worked. "Contact on sensors," her weapons officer reported. "Unknown ship approaching the system." "Hail them," Grace ordered. The alien ship's response came immediately. "Please don't shoot. We're here to trade. We have permits. We're peaceful." Grace almost laughed. Once, humans had begged aliens not to destroy them. Now, aliens begged humans for permission to enter their space. "Permission granted," she said. "Welcome to Sol. Mind your manners while you're here." The alien ship entered the system carefully, broadcasting peaceful intentions on every frequency. Its crew had heard the stories. They knew what had happened to the last aliens who came to Earth with hostile intentions. Somewhere in the galaxy, in a hidden colony far from any inhabited world, the last few thousand Kithara lived in exile. They had one message that they broadcast, constantly hoping other species would listen. Never go to Sol. Never threaten the humans. They are not what they appear to be. They are what we made them to be, and what we made them to be is death itself. High Arbiter Zethara had been wrong about one thing. Humans weren't her people's failed experiment. They were her people's greatest success. They had created the perfect warrior species. Then they had the misfortune of trying to fight it.